Right now, your practice's billing data is actually being run through an AI model. It's being compared to every other practice in your state and your specialty, and the AI is looking for one thing: outliers. Are you one of them? Are you an outlier and don't even know it? So this week, we're pulling back the curtain, talking a little bit more about audits and talk about what payers are scrutinizing and making sure that you guys are just at least aware of some of the different types of audit targets that may be out there. All right, so we have been involved in practices who have had audits of their coding in the past. They were thinking they were doing everything right, and come to find out they were not billing appropriately. And so coding audits are one of the main ways that you can help and protect, at least understand where you're at, who needs to be trained, and how to make sure and hold those individuals in your practice accountable. And so again, most people aren't coming into work doing things wrong, but you really want to make sure that your documentation supports the level of coding. So last episode, we talked about coding audits and just how to protect your practice and just the different types of audits that are out there. So today we're going to talk about some list of things that are on kind of the payer watch, so to speak. We scoured through different lawsuits and just our own experience of when we have had practices get an audit, what things that they were looking for and how they overcome that. So obviously the power of knowing what payers are watching is so important. Still highly recommend that coding audit to make sure things are going the right way. All right, so number one is going to be E&M services, and that's really going to be about high-level codes, right? So payers are always laser focused on practices billing a high percentage of 99214s, 99215s. They're also scrutinizing modifier 25 usage, again, where you could have an E&M service on the same day as either a procedure or a wellness visit. So could also be an OBGYN practice where you have a problem visit during a global maternity period. Again, may make perfect sense, may actually be applicable to what's going on from a patient care perspective. But if your documentation doesn't clearly show a separate and significantly identifiable issue, they could claw back that money if you were in an audit situation. And they're not going to take small amounts. It's, can be a urology practice had to pay back $1.85 million to settle allegations of misusing this exact modifier, right? Modifier 25. So really, again, important that you understand kind of making sure that if you're doing those things and it's documented appropriately, that you've had a third-party coding organization look at it, say, yep, that's correct. Again, may not always protect you from an audit, but at least you know what you're doing is correct and you could fight against it if necessary. Now, number two, we are seeing, folks still question what's going on with telehealth, right? CMS keeps changing and pushing back those change in regulations. But whenever you see an increase in volume of certain codes that are maybe high revenue generating, that's always going to lead to, regulatory review, I guess, so to speak. So telehealth visits have skyrocketed from 840,000 to over 52 million in 2020. So that's just 2019 to 2020. So payers do and are starting to kind of comb through those telehealth. They're looking for red flags, like a high percentage of 60-minute behavioral health sessions. They're looking for overlapping appointments or audio-only visits that don't have documentation explaining why the video wasn't feasible. Again, just really want to make sure that you're evaluating your telehealth workflow. As always, highly, highly recommend, if you guys haven't checked out our margin playbook, it is really just a check and look at patient AR metrics and things you can take a look at and improve in your practice. Free download, head on over to notrevmd.com/margin-playbook, and link will be in the show notes. All right, so number three is RPM, remote patient monitoring. I know I did podcasts on this not too long ago. Another area of explosive growth and therefore intense scrutiny. So OIG is actually also watching this closely because payers are looking for practices billing for multiple RPM devices from a single patient in a single month. And they're flagging rapid spikes in patient volume for RPM services and billing for patients, especially if there's no established provider-patient relationship, or if you're using a software that doesn't actually directly connect or you're not seeing the actual metrics behind it, right? You may be calling patients or you just may be not calling patients, maybe doing something wrong. Again, they're just really taking a look at this. So just really want to make sure that you are doing this appropriately, that you have the consent signed, that you're documenting, that you're actually reviewing real metrics and documenting those reviews in the patient contact. There was a company that had to pay back almost $1.3 million for issues like using non-FDA devices and then had kickbacks going on. There was another group that paid over $14 million for upcoding those remote cardiac monitoring services. Again, not fun stuff. I like to always believe the good in people and hope that these people weren't doing it on purpose. So I just, do think that it's important to understand RPM. Number 4, modifier usage. Of course, classic reason for an audit target. So just really want to make sure that you are using those modifiers appropriately and have had documentation review so that you do know. I have brought up incident to billing before. Again, this is when a non-physician practitioner, right, mid-level, like a nurse practitioner, PA, is providing a service and it's billed under the physician's MPI to get 100% of that fee schedule, right? So otherwise that mid-level is getting 85%. In a lot of cases. So for this to be compliant, the physician must be in the office, immediately available, and it can only be for established patient with established plan of care. I see this misused all of the time. And it is the audit that we were part of was a practice who had come to us for a coding audit. And this is what they got. I think it was like $300,000 that they had to pay back. It was never a big practice, but still big no-no. So auditors are obviously data mining. They know where practices have a physician's MPI. It's being used with a high number of services in a single day. They know that they can't be in 2 places at once, and they will demand that money back. The other piece to this is there's a lot of folks who say, oh, well, I'm still being credentialed. And so they allow a mid-level who's not credentialed yet to bill under another provider. Or they have even a physician who's not credentialed yet billing under another physician. Huge no-no, just can't do it. I know that credentialing takes a long time and you do need to plan ahead for that, but really, incident to billing is scary. And having been through watching that family practice pay back that money and do an audit there just gives me a little PTSD. So obviously, really important for you to understand what you're doing and how you're doing it. The other thing is if you have a CPT code that has both a professional component and a technical component, which in the lab space we have a lot of, so that's the modifier 26, modifier TCs, and you perform only one part but bill global, then you do need to make sure that you're doing that appropriately. So for example, radiologists interpreting X-ray that was taken in another facility, and if they are billing the global instead of only billing the professional fee, then that can be a target for a take-back. And again, there are some arrangements where you can bill globally and on behalf and then do a client fee schedule with one of the technical or professional providers. There's some very specific rules around how you do that and who you can do that with, and referral partnerships and anti-kickback. Really be careful with this. Again, there are right ways to do this, but I highly recommend speaking with a legal counsel who specializes in this before you have this sort of arrangements. So now for the final point, I do just want to, make sure, obviously everything comes down to medical necessity documentation. So if you can't prove a service was medically necessary, it doesn't matter whether you did it or not, the payer's not going to pay. And so if you are not documenting consistently with any of the things that you're doing, right, procedures, tests, whatever, and it's lack of documentation, but maybe you did it appropriately, you just didn't have time or didn't take the time to fill out the note, they are going to, it's going to catch up with you. We're being told now that payers are using AI to spot like these generic copy and paste documentations. And again, it's unfair, it's pain in the rear end, but it is happening. And so we really want to make sure that you guys, use templates, there's nothing wrong with that, but just make sure not everything is a copy and paste. Or the other thing, not just saying like, 45 minutes, instead of actually saying, okay, it was 47 minutes with 15 minutes of face-to-face time, or, don't just round up. and really make sure that, again, if you are ordering a test, especially if you're performing in-house, that you are documenting the medical necessity of that test so that you are not going to be audited and caught doing something that you didn't think was inappropriate, but was. Again, big reason why I suggest a coding audit, just to make sure everybody's on the same page in the office around level of documentation necessary and the coding that you need to go along with the level of documentation that you wrote. So comment that here, right? Payers are using data to find the outliers. They're using AI. You guys should be using AI. We do in our company where it's possible. We're trialing out some AI associated with some of our EMR PM softwares that we utilize. And it's been really interesting. I think there's still room to go in terms of perfecting that software, but there are some really great things that you can try and learn. All right, so 3-step action plan. Number 1, once a quarter, run a report of your billing data. Do the E&M distribution and then do an independent coding audit. Really make sure if you're doing RPM, if you're doing telehealth, that you've looked at your data and made sure that that's part of your audit so that you know whether or not you're doing that correctly. Number 2, make sure that your documentation is crisp, it's not generic, it's not copy and paste narratives, and that you are clearly documenting, especially for those high-level E&Ms or those modifier 25s, that you're really making it clear that the visit warranted that type of coding. And then last, like I said, internal audits, make sure that you've had a coder look at 10 to 20 charts per provider every 6 to 12 months. Really great way to be strategic and make sure that you're getting a varying view of, those high-level E&Ms, telehealth, RPM billing if you're doing it, and modifier use. So really key here is to just protect yourself, make sure that you're staying educated. As always, if you did find this podcast helpful, would love to get a review on Apple Podcast, share it with a friend, and if you are looking for a new full-service medical billing and coding team, head on over to notrevmd.com, and up in the right-hand corner, there is a free metric audit for practices that qualify. All right, have a great day.